Design review. Take a moment to look at the September 1st Design Review Commission meeting minutes. Not much there, so if there are no additions or corrections, the minutes stand as presented. Okay, now we'll start looking at the exterior design. Bob, would you tell us what we've got in front of us?
This is I think I have more up-to-date side views. Let me just check here. Hang on a second.
Sure.
Now, this will be a side view of the final plat that they've presented to us with the trees, staggered trees. Some of them are closer to the road than other ones. So the big oak trees are, I think, closer to the road, and the pine trees are closer to the building. So it'll give you both pine trees and evergreens and leaf trees.
Looks good.
And then,
Oh, like they added a truck.
yeah, they had a,
Well, it helps explain what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah. and then the next page is that's the side of the building, what the side would look like. And I have an updated version of that. I'm sorry, that's the front of the building. This is an updated version of what the front of the building is going to look like.
And this is what attaches to the existing building, not the existing building
That's correct.
plus,
Yes. And then here is a site plan. And as the mayor noticed, the size of the building has increased. So the trees will be closer to the road. The drainage will be rerouted a little bit. And they've increased the size of the building. How much was, so Greg, how much did they increase the size of the building? Do you know?
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Well, it went from like almost 18,000. Now it's like 25,000, I believe.
Yeah,
I can't see it for some reason.
27.6, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't see the screen.
That's okay. See if I can zoom in a little bit. If that helps anybody.
No, for some reason I don't have any video.
Okay. This is a site plan that includes 103 parking spots and 6 handicap spots. I think it includes everything they need on here. This is actual real site plan this time. So I think you can see where the trees are going to be located over here up to the top of the north side.
Looks nice.
And I think I have a updated version. This is what the side of the building will look like, which is the north side of the building.
Mm-hmm.
So the inset there is where the loading dock is, where the difference is in the height of the building.
Mm-hmm.
Right here.
Well, from a design review standpoint, I think the trees look good. We weren't asking for changes to the building. They've addressed our needs. Does anybody have any questions?
What about signage? Are they going to have anything?
Well, that would go through the sign. They just have to get a sign permit for the signs.
Okay.
Yeah, we would take care of that administratively here.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Looks good. I don't know what we would be looking for from this, from the design review standpoint that we haven't already addressed. So does anybody have a motion that we approve this site plan as presented?
I'll make the motion if nobody else wants to.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion. Are there some things we're not sure about, or are we that haven't been addressed or that are unclear?
Well, I would have made the motion, but I couldn't find the mute button, so.
All right, I thought you were opposed to it, Ronnie, so. Okay, well, good deal. If we have a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Do we hear any nays? Do we hear any nays? No nays. All right, motion approved.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Greg.
Appreciate it.
All right, there's no other business before the design review?
Yeah, I'd
Is
like
there?
to, I'd like to
Okay.
make a comment about the previous case.
Okay,
It was a question about the signage and the comment was that, well, they'll just get a sign approved, but don't y'all think that a building this large with this much blank space, the placement of the sign
could be
could
design
be,
or,
yeah, I mean, it could affect the design appearance of the building. So I'm not saying that we need to do that. I'm just questioning whether or not that ought to be part of the
it probably, since it is visual and it probably will be substantial. Do we have any idea where, well, he's gone now, where the sign, Bob, do you know where they plan to put signage?
I would imagine they plan to replace the Pomida sign up front and then on the pole.
freestanding, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, that's,
Because there's-
they had said that they were going to replace that sign. I don't know that he said he was going to just put up a new sign where that is, or whether he was just going to take that down, or what they were going to do.
Okay,
Because to me, it seemed like there's a possibility of an improvement to the appearance of the building by covering up a large portion of that, big metal wall.
yeah, I think as a part of our administrative review that we were planning to do over the next couple of months, as far as, fixing some of these issues, like, I think we need to take a look at the design review, what we're actually really allowed to do, design review wise. And do we really want to get in, how far into this do we want to get into every one of these design issues? So I think what we need to do is take a look at, I don't know how many of us went to that MTAS class a couple of years ago, but it was pretty enlightening what we could do with design review, what we're actually trying to do. It didn't quite match. So I don't know. We just need to take a look at that in more depth, I think.
okay.
It's just something for the future, to look at. Because if they just moved into the Pomida building and they wanted to sign up, they could just come to us and get a sign. That wouldn't go to the design review commission. We wouldn't do that. They would just be able to put a sign up as long as it matched the sign ordinance.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
All right, well, may want to take a look at that.
But this brings us back to my neighbor on the square, and you just go up and you just buy a sign, and then you go screw it to the wall, and it's not aesthetically coherent or pleasing.
Right. So we need to adjust the sign ordinance accordingly.
Yeah,
So because that's actually a legal sign,
it is.
which we determined. So there may be a separate sign regulations for the square, in reality at some point.
Does anybody on this board remember 4 years ago when we got into the sign ordinance?
Is that the Butch's?
Yes, I think we had a substantial discussion about signs and what is a sign and what's not and what you can do. And I mean, it was a knockdown drag out, quite frankly. Probably one of the most difficult discussions we've had
Yeah.
around here.
Well, and at that, there are numerous types of signs that have not been addressed in our sign ordinance that people can put up because we really don't address it. It just fits, display signs, digital display signs and such. There are really no regulations on any of that. And I have a whole bunch of stuff that I started working on. I just kind of put it on the side while we were finishing up with the table of uses. But there are a lot of, if you look at a bunch of different sign ordinances throughout the state, many, many, many different types of signs that are not really identified, addressed, or anything in our zoning ordinance. So
Like
It's
30.
what's that?
Talk about
It was
that.
like 30 signs.
It was like 30 different types of signs. Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of sign ordinances have a digital section in there that if you have digital display signs, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. Right now, I'm not sure that somebody just couldn't come out here and put a digital sign, a 20 by 30 digital sign up someplace. That was
Because
less
it's not
than,
covered?
well, they're not that big, but a sign less than 100 square feet that was completely like a television set. But anyway,
So we need to look at what we were
we need to
looking
look at
for.
a lot, several of those things, yeah.
But even when we're looking at it, it seems to me that we have two things going. We have that we need to revisit the sign ordinance. And the sign ordinance will tell us what types of signs, where they can be, the sizes, all that. But then it seems like we still need to have, as part of the design review, some aspect of signage, because that is something very visual. And it would be the design review committee that talks about it needs to be aesthetically pleasing. The sign ordinance would just talk about the size and the location and the type. Seems like it has to be addressed in both to some degree.
Right.
Didn't we
Well-
have to approve the sign for Main Street Eatery?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thought
No,
did.
we approved the sign itself because I think it was, I don't know the answer to that. We did do that.
It
We
was,
did do
it was
that.
lighted and flashing, and it was in the historic district.
Okay.
Okay.
We don't really have a historic district, so.
Well, or I'm
Well,
sorry.
the square.
Yeah. But I know what you're saying. It was because of its location. but-
Yeah.
Yeah.
For business.
I think on the square, shouldn't there be especially on the square,
Yes.
there should be some kind of regulation and possibly a company that could produce those signs that would, that a owner could go to, get a sign that would be approved for the square.
So
Or several.
would we allow a sign as big as that behind me to be on the square? That's the whole side of a building. And glancing at our sign ordinance, it appears to me that as long as, if they wanted to paint something on the side of their building, as long as it doesn't cover more than 25% of that side, it would be allowed by permit.
Yeah, see, that sounds like something that needs to be visually approved by somebody that because otherwise, like for instance, a mural. Seems like if somebody's going to come in and paint the whole side of the museum building that would face South Main, that ought to go in front of somebody who says, yes, that's appropriate. No, that's not. Don't y'all think? That could be a source of a big problem.
Well, my point in bringing up the signage is that, I think with all the improvements that they're making to the building, certainly you would think that they would do something, with the signage at least to see from Highway 64 if they want to be visible.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. I wouldn't, you would
Yeah,
think.
but you won't see it from Highway 64.
Okay.
You probably won't see it from
Won't.
Highway 64.
Yeah, it'd be a little
You
bit-
might see the pole sign in front of the building,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's
What's
not
the
really,
difference?
it's not really facing 64.
What's the difference in a sign and a mural on the side of the building? Is that a sign?
Yes,
It is?
I think so. I think a mural is a sign.
Well, I don't know whether it is or not.
No, I don't
I
think
hope
it is.
not. I hope it's not, because I would hate to see a mural that could only cover 25% of the side of a building.
Well,
Cover the whole thing or not at all.
it states in 142802 that, let's see, where is it? Somewhere that the Board of Zoning Appeals could permit a mural, 142803. The Board of Zoning Appeals may choose to permit large murals, decorative paintings on structures, and other unique signage as deemed appropriate and in keeping with the established decor of the neighborhood.
So what would their course of action be to get that approved? Would that be?
Well, see, again, I'm not sure that if I wanted to paint the picture of Jim on the side of a building, I don't know if that's a sign or not. Is it, Jim?
If your ordinance defines it as a sign, then it is a sign. If not, then it's not. So
Well,
I think
looking at our sign ordinance, I'm not sure that
It doesn't define it.
define that.
No, it does not define mural.
so. That'd be something to consider whether or not you want it to be that. I mean, I would consider it more of artwork, but I've definitely seen it in ordinances where it's part of the sign ordinance, so it's very restrictive, so you just can't do it. But I mean, to me, it's more of an artwork that I think you did. If there's a review process for a mural outside of the sign ordinance, that'd be great. Like George said, I mean, have it come to the DRC or something to have a general approval process that's not just cut and dry, black and white in the code, and then excluded from the sign ordinance.
I think the tripping point to that would be: does the mural advertise for the business, or does it not? Is it just art, or does it
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
seek to gain monetary gain?
Yeah, and then maybe the distinction. If it's got name of the business or any sort of message on it, then it is a sign. If it does not, then
Yeah,
it's
but
not.
you know, you can't regulate content of a sign. You can only regulate a sign. And in our ordinance, a sign is any object, device, graphic design, or part thereof situated outdoors or indoors, used to advertise, announce, identify, declare, demonstrate, display, instruct, direct, or attract attention.
Maybe that just needs to be reworded
I
to.
mean, I don't know. I mean, that's what you get into. But I mean, the Supreme Court has said you can't, I can regulate the size of a sign to some extent, but I really can't regulate what's on that sign.
Well, that can't be true, because there are places in Collierville and Germantown who you can't just go in there and put whatever kind of sign you want. You've got to adhere
No.
to their.
Their size. It comes down to size, George. It
No,
doesn't come-
color.
Well, you may can do some color, but I can't. If I want to put up a sign that says, like somebody did one time, that the mayor's exceeding his, I forget what they had. They had it painted all over a building. Anyway, you can't stop me from. Content of the sign is very difficult to regulate.
No, absolutely. Everything's got to be technically has to be content neutral.
Yes.
And
it can-
cities that regulate signs like political signs versus open house signs and stuff, that's technically not legal. However, the general rule is you can regulate time, place, and manner for signs. So maybe it's something about how it's affixed to a building, like paint directly on a wall is regulated a certain way without talking about what the message is on that sign.
Right.
But maybe it's the way it's affixed, because you're not going to have a mural on a plastic face. It's going to take up an entire wall. It'd be apply directly to it. So maybe there's a way to separate it like that on how it's applied to a building.
Okay, so we need some work on signage, but this will be done by the planning commission rather than the design review, except the design review does have to have some role in this. I mean, if you look at what they are responsible for, one of the things they're responsible for, if it wasn't a commercial building, if it was a subdivision, we would be looking at the sign. So signage is an aspect of design review, and we probably going forward should ask in a site plan what their plans are or what the materials are. We're not interested in the size there. We're interested in, again, because it's design review, the aesthetics of it. Is it compatible? And going forward, maybe that's something we should be doing. But as far as the design review, do we have any further discussion about signage? Because this seems like it should be planning commission discussion. And if I don't hear anybody else, and there is no other design review business, then let's close the design review commission and open up the planning commission.
Do you have a gavel?
Boom, boom. Okay, no.
Excuse me, I'm a little bit late here on my technology, obviously, and I'm the architect, Byron Carson. And is it too late to ask you if you can back up just a little bit? I understand about the sign review and the design review for its compatibility, the design of the sign.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the design of the sign is not currently in our design review commission guidelines, I don't think. But that was a discussion we were having about reviewing our sign ordinance at some point in the future.
Now, is that in regards to the existing sign or just
No.
a new sign?
It would be, I don't know.
Now, as long as the sign, any proposed sign would just have to meet our current sign
Sure.
regulations.
And is there a maximum square footage? that's
100 square
allowable?
feet.
100?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's 10 by 10.
Yeah,
Right.
or 1 by 100.
All right.
And if it's painted on the side of a building or attached to a building, it can actually be 25% of the area.
Well,
If it's an attached sign to the side of a
I see.
building.
If you're just replacing the pole sign or the facade of another sign, you just come to the city hall and get a sign permit for it. And it's $1 a square foot with a minimum of $25 to get a sign permit.
Okay.
Of course, a maximum of 100 because you can't have a sign bigger than 100
Unless it's on the side of a building.
unless it's on the side of a building.
What happened to 120? I thought 125 was a number. Am I
I
misremembering?
don't think so.
Okay.
Pretty sure it's 100 square feet. It's $1 a square foot.
We have, this is a fairly new zoning ordinance and design review ordinance that we're working with. So if we act like we don't know what we're doing, it's because we don't know what we're doing. But we're learning along with our customers.
It's 100 square feet, George.
Okay.
I just looked, it's on, I just looked it on the sign, I looked up on the sign ordinance.
Okay. And you might also refer to the zoning ordinance available online for the details on signage if there are questions that
Yeah.
we haven't answered tonight.
Okay.
Do you have the new ordinance posted on
Yes.
the website?
Yeah, we just updated it. Mendy just updated it whenever we approved the table of uses.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, if not, we're adjourned. On to the planning commission meeting.
Excuse me, Mr. Carson, did you have anything else, or were there?
Were you satisfied with the tree landscape?
Oh, I thought it looked good. I really liked it.
Staggered plan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes, sir, we did approve that, so.
well, that's good. And,
The site plan has been approved.
okay,
So the only thing we need now to get a permit would be a plan, an actual plan itself for
And the
the
square-
construction of the building.
and the square footage of the addition
Is okay?
is satisfactory as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Anything else?
That's
Mr.
all
Carter?
I have.
All right, good. Well, okay. We're adjourned. Third time's a charm.
Thank you.
Call to order the planning commission meeting. Take a minute and look at the minutes. Or take a second to look at the minutes. I don't think you need a minute.
Read slow.
No?
Can I ask one more question? As long as it's still
Sure.
on? The curb cut, are we too tight to the corner, or is that satisfactory with that wide curve to enter for the trucks entering in the truck dock?
There's a specific linear footage regulation, is there not, Mayor? Or is that streets? No street shall be within what distance of another street? You're muted.
Well, I know in Memphis and Shelby County, it's 50 feet to an intersection. And I think we're right at that.
Ronnie, you want to say what you said again because you were muted?
Well, yeah, I was just asking, I can't really tell by looking at this site plan. And I was just wondering how close is that to the street? And you answered that, you said 50 feet, so.
That's correct. And I don't think it's good to be closer than 50 feet. So that's where I started the curvature of the wide curb cut at the intersection of Marginal and Jernigan.
Jim, do you have any comments on that part of it? Jim is our planner, Mr. Carson.
Okay.
No, I mean, I reviewed the site plan. I think I'd look at
So
it.
14.2-603 looks like it addresses that issue. And it looks like no point of access shall be allowed within 10 feet of a right-of-way of any public intersection. So that seems pretty close.
10 feet?
That's what it says.
Well, we're good then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me put it on. Let me put the PDF up and I'll show it to you. Because I was hiding on. I was using a word on the side that I could look at myself. Let me see what page that's on. Hang on a second. It's on page 22. I'll get there. So here it is. No point of access shall be allowed within 10 feet of the right-of-way of any public street intersection.
We might ought to look at that. But
Yeah,
I would say so.
That's a little short.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's,
that's tight.
Not realistic at all.
No,
And the purpose of that, if I'm correct, is that you don't want people turning right off of Marginal to have to contend with people coming out of a parking lot any quicker than they normally would, right? Am I thinking correctly?
Marginal.
Yeah, you come down Marginal to Jernigan, you want to take a right, and you don't want to have to worry about people coming out of the parking lot within 10 feet of you. You're worried about traffic on the road first. You're not looking at people coming out of parking lots.
Yeah.
you basically got people side by side trying to come out onto the same street.
Right. But as far as their site plan goes, 50 feet sounds great.
10 feet's the width of a parking spot.
Yeah.
Barely.
yeah, that's very tight.
Yep.
Well, then we comply.
So you can apply easily, I would say, 5 times the amount.
Yes.
That's surprising that we would have had that like that.
Well, yeah.
Access.
Looking elsewhere and see.
That might be an item to bring up for your next meeting to,
I already wrote it down. Thank you, sir.
oh,
Thanks for pointing that out.
just
You have
stay,
anything else you'd like to point out, Laura, so we can fix?
just stay with me. I'll have the whole project redeveloped here. No, that's all.
Okay.
Are we in the,
We're back in the okay, we're back in the planning commission.
did we actually approve the minutes?
No, we didn't. So
Okay.
if you've had a chance to look at them and there are no additions or corrections, the minutes stand as presented. Okay, what's the first item on the agenda after that?
Oh, sorry. This is yes, the part 2 of the zoning ordinance is a review of the design review guidelines. In red, I sent you a PDF of it. In red are the additions made to that design, the BZA. Most of this came from a discussion at the board level where they discussed allowing appeals of board of zoning appeals decisions to go, where do they go after that? According to our zoning ordinance, according to what we wrote in that one section, they go to a court unless otherwise specified in the ordinance. I don't know, Jim and I did some research. I know I did some research on it and found quite a few places that did not really go to court. They go to court, not back to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. So I don't know if you can see that. I know I moved it out so people could see it a little bit. But the section I added here at the end is post-hearing requests. And this came directly from Nashville's zoning ordinance. It allows for an aggrieved party to revisit the BZA within 60 days, as long as they have additional information to bring back to the Board of Zoning Appeals. They can't just say, I want another hearing. They have to have a reason. So it also allows at the end here that that any aggrieved party any decision, final decision made by the BZA could be taken to court, basically. And you can see the 9 steps there, which is what I ripped off from Nashville.
So hoping that it never comes to that, if it did go to court, who would be subpoena exposed? The chairman?
Well, there's no lawsuit involved. It's just a decision. They would just question your decision and bring it to a court to reverse your decision.
Right, but I mean, I'm sure the court would want to hear arguments on both
So
sides.
I think you have to present in writing what you're talking about. And, I don't know what Gallagher's court would do, Judge Gallagher would do in his court, but, I'm sure there would be something that we may have to
That wouldn't
be there.
That would not go to Judge Gallagher. That would go to a chancellor.
Okay.
And this is most common with BZAs. BZAs are considered quasi-judicial, so there's not typically an appeal process locally. You gotta go to the court system to do that. So this isn't out of the ordinary from most other BZAs. I think we all probably thought there's something in TCA that mandated that it go straight to court and not have any local appeal, but it's technically not there, but it is the way that it's practiced in most places. So this isn't out of the ordinary. What this does, especially this last section, the post-hearing requests, it sort of adds another option, what you can do after you get denied at the BZA, if that ever happens. Instead of just kind of being there, well, I got to, file suit, take this to court, or do nothing. This gives you one other option that you can go through if you feel like there's more information out there that you could present, or something changes, shortly thereafter the hearing.
So in the cases of variances in usage, this would be the first level of appeal, but in the case of administrative review, it'd be a second level of appeal. Because the first level is the BZA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can they then go beyond, and again, they go to the same court and have the same process?
Correct.
I think, so somebody comes to City Hall and we say they can't do it, and they say, well, I don't think you're right. They go to the BZA. And the BZA says, no, staff is right. You're wrong. Can't do it. So then they can come back 60 days later with new information and represent that according to the way it's written and the way I just wrote it in here in the Nashville's zoning ordinance. And then if the BZA says, no, it's still, staff is still correct, they interpreted it correctly, then they would go to the court.
Okay.
So did I answer that question?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it was the same process, even though it's a different additional level of appeal. Well, I think that's a good thing to have in there that we didn't have. Thank you, Nashville.
Yeah, and Nashville's is pretty clear.
Yeah, it
pretty
is.
Clearly written, of course they have to be. The other section we added in there was, do I have that in there? Didn't you put a thing in there on variances?
Did
Oh,
I?
didn't.
Yeah, you didn't. It's
You
not-
did. I sent it out yesterday. I don't have that. Hang on a second. Let me get that. Let me get that document up here. Hang on. You added some stuff, Betsy, over the weekend or
Mhm.
Friday or Saturday, whatever day it was.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can get your piece up here. Yeah, so all you did was you enumerated some of those things that were in a paragraph form.
Yeah.
Changed it around a little bit, right?
Well, I liked what you had done before because I think it's a lot easier to follow, number one.
Right. If you're trying to interpret a paragraph,
Yeah.
it's a lot harder. But if you got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 step thing, it makes it, I think, easier to understand it.
Yeah. But then I also added something because I didn't think it had really been addressed well elsewhere, because I think sometimes we focus on, and I don't even know if it's accurate. So I would like someone to weigh in on this, Jim, that I think when we talk about nonconformities, we're generally talking about usage, which, you know, if they stop the usage, they can't start it back. That's pretty cut and dry. And if it's a building and I guess it burns to the ground, I don't think they can build it back. But we really hadn't addressed the lots, and it doesn't really apply very often, but it does sometimes apply. So that gave me an opportunity to put that in there, because it seemed like it was a reasonable place, because you would be coming to the BZA for this situation. And it's not your typical variance. Usually your variances have to do with, you know, your side setbacks and stuff like that, and they have to do with the topographical or the geographic or the size and shape. But then there is the other thing: if it was legal before, it would be a taking unless you had some method of addressing it.
For some reason, I'm not finding your language someplace. Hang on a second.
Okay.
That's still not it.
Oh, okay.
I see it in an email, but I'm looking, I know I fixed it. Well, maybe I can pull up the email and show everybody that. Hang on a second. Right. I'm going to share the email here. Hang on a second. All right. There's your additional, there's your language that you put up there.
Okay.
For some reason, I thought I sent it out, but I guess I didn't. Did I send it to you, Betsy, last week?
You know, I didn't check back afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
You did send it out.
I did, didn't I? Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But
Thank you, Judy.
why it's not in the packet, I can't figure out. I'm sorry.
Okay. This is not a final version. This is just what I wanted to accomplish. I wanted to have it broken down like Bob did in the other area and do an ABCD.
Right.
And I also wanted, or an ABC.
And it's basically taking that that paragraph and enumerating it yes, so that it looks different. So it looks more, it looks easier to understand.
Jim, would you weigh in on D to see if that is a valid explanation of the situation?
Yeah, what I'm looking at right now is to see what else we have on non-conforming uses specifically.
Okay.
Because, and I've seen it both ways, where you could have this in there where the BZA would have to issue a variance on a non-conforming lot just to, you know, make it work. But there's other parts of the code that may already be in place as a
Well, that's what I wondered, because it doesn't seem like it is. And so I just wondered, how does someone fix this if they don't go to the BZA?
No, it's tricky. And usually if you're only addressing non-conforming uses, like you said, it's not going to address a non-conforming site characteristic, which is usually something different.
Yeah.
You know, there's not enough parking spaces, or the setbacks aren't proper, or like that on annexation, like the lot size is inadequate for the zoning district that it sits in. So there's, but going through the BZA for a variance is not uncommon. I'm just going to do a quick look here and see what we already have in the books to see if any of that would apply.
I did find it in the, or here it is right here, Betsy.
Okay.
I did find it. It's just in a Word document. I don't know why I didn't have it in a PDF.
Okay, so I'm looking at 14.2601, continuance of non-conforming use. So what this does, it talks about it says within districts established by this ordinance or amendments that may later be adopted, there exist uses and or structures which were lawful before the ordinance was passed, but which would be prohibited, regulated, or restricted under current restrictions. That's the non-conforming use.
Mhm.
So here's where it can go two different ways. And what this does, it says it's considered non-conforming. It can remain as is, no change is needed until there's a change or it sits vacant for a certain amount of time. And then if somebody tried to do something else with it in the future, then you would have to come into compliance with the new code. So that's the way you want, how you could choose to eliminate nonconformities, because you may have a reason why you change the zoning code. Say we have this existing uses here. We really don't want those long term. So over time, we're going to phase them out. We're going to change the code, make these non-conforming, and then when they transition to something else or sit vacant, then if something new comes in, then it'll be required to then comply with what we really want, which is the new code and everything. That may not be the case though. There may be conditions where you say, well, we think that's fine as is, even though the code has been tweaked a little bit. We think it's fine in perpetuity, and that's where a variance may actually come in more useful. So they could come and apply to the Board of Zoning Appeals and say, let me allow this non-conforming site characteristic to remain forever. Don't just call me non-conforming with the hopes of phasing me out over time, but it'll actually, for that lot, make it a sort of a permitted condition forever. So it might be good to have both options in there, honestly. Someone could apply to the BZA for a variance because of that situation, or not. They could just stay at non-conforming.
Okay. So I don't know whether it's a matter of something that that we feel doesn't need to be phased out. To me, it's a matter of if a person has bought a lot that was legal, that I feel it's a taking to change it if they did nothing to warrant it. So, I mean, it's not like I'm okay with it necessarily. It's just that I feel that we're overreaching if we do something about it. So do you think it could be, I mean, because the 14.2.205 seems to mostly deal with usage or buildings. And if I'm right, usage takes care of itself. If someone, like we have the vet on the square, we no longer allow vets on the square. That guy can stay there as long as he wants to. And if he sells it and they put something else in there, he can't go back to it. That takes care of itself. And he would have no argument or complaint. But someone who has a lot that was a legal lot when it was annexed into the city of Somerville, or was before the most recent iteration of a zoning ordinance, and then all of a sudden it's not, there just needs to be something very clear that says that we're not messing with them. And I don't even know whether I feel like they should even have to go to me, they're a legal lot. They didn't change anything, but they do have to go to the BZA. Is that correct? They would have to?
Well, if you just call them non-conforming, which they would be, they can just stay in that condition, a non-conforming condition. But like you said, though, once something changed, they would not be able to go back to what they were considered non-conforming. Yeah. So in that case, I think you would, and that can, that doesn't take any action at all. They're just considered non-conforming.
Yeah.
But if you did want to make it more permanent, then I think going to the BZA is the way to do it. Absolutely.
Okay.
And this, the way I read this gives the property owner the option to go and make it permanent. Is sort of the simple way of breaking that down.
Okay. So that's a reasonable thing to put in there at that point.
I think so. And then as a BZA, he could say, well, no, we did this because we wanted to phase out what you're doing on that lot. We don't want that there anymore. So over time, we expect it to be phased out. So we don't want to grant a variance. I mean, you have that option if it came down to it, case by case.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Anything else? Was there anything else that was changed on this, Bob?
A little higher up, it gives you a procedure for appeals up there, whereas the black was in there before, which is not much. The red has been added. So
Yep.
14.2-203, you can see all that red area was added to the procedure.
Mhm.
I just felt like, again, I was looking at Nashville and Franklin and Knoxville and other places, and came up with some of this language here.
Okay.
But it gives someone a procedure on how to make an appeal to the BZA. So what we're working on our end also is going to be a one-page document that we can hand an application basically for an appeal to the BZA, where they would be able to fill out that application, present it back to the staff. The staff would send it to the BZA chairman. The chairman would make a decision on whether to put it on the agenda, and then we would put it on the agenda.
Okay.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
Okay.
What? Ronnie?
It's nothing against the current chairman. I know she would never do anything difficult, but you're given the power of one person to say, no, we're not going to hear that.
Yeah.
The way that's written, and I don't believe that's if I'm entitled to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for something, then it seems to me I'm entitled to go, and it's a matter of putting it on an agenda and scheduling the meeting.
So this number 3 here, where at the BZA chairman's request, the staff shall add it to the ballots to the request of the agenda. You think it ought to be automatically?
Look, I've seen some chairmen that would use that, not in Somerville, but I have seen some chairmen that would use that as it's entirely up to me whether you get to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals or not.
Right.
You either have the right to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals or you don't. I mean, it's not one person gets to make the decision.
So actually 3, 4, and 5 should be removed, right?
Well,
let's
I'm
see.
just saying there
3
needs
and 4.
to, again, if I'm entitled to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, I don't want to have to fight with the chairman who decided that I'm not entitled to.
Maybe this section needs to direct the chairman to do something,
Yeah.
not require them to do it.
Well, section 5, paragraph 5 says the BZA chairman shall fix a reasonable time for the hearing of appeal given. So they have to do it.
Well, in very large communities, or there are planning commissions and BZAs that are much larger and much more detailed than ours. We operate where you, Bob, or the administration does this on the
Yes.
authority of, and so why doesn't it just say the BZA shall fix the time, or the?
Well, the chairman should call, especially since many times it's going to be a called meeting, the chairman should do that.
But okay.
But I don't know that it's up to the chairman. If you're going to allow the chairman to set all of the agendas, then there needs to be at least some sort of process that allows me to get by the chairman if the chairman refuses to.
No, I have no problem with what you're saying, Ronnie. I just, it's always seems a little awkward because it's really, I realize Bob puts these together for me and I'm the chairman, but that's the way it is handled. And so it's on my, I guess the setting of the time is on my behalf, but I'm not doing it. You know.
Right,
well,
but I mean, you should have.
I'm tacitly agreeing to it, yeah.
And that's fine, but it should be, to me, the chairman would call the meeting. The chairman, if we have a meeting scheduled, then the chairman needs to be the one to say, well, we don't have any business, we're not meeting, not the staff.
Okay.
I mean, I know I'm splitting hairs here, but if you've been in some of the situations in other cities, Jim, do people split hairs?
No.
No.
No,
Wouldn't that
never
be
happened.
like family and friends, could get a,
So with
Well, you
that
know,
said,
these
would you just want to
BZAs
change number 3 to the
Eliminate it?
BZA chairman shall request the staff instead of saying at the chairman's request? It'll say you have to make that request to have the staff add number 3.
That'll fix it, won't it?
Well, I
Yeah,
would say in number 1, it ought to read, the town hall staff will present the request to the BZA. And then on number 3, again, it just seems to me that the staff adds it to that the role of the chairman in all of this is to simply call for the meeting.
Yes,
Uh,
I think we're all in agreement with that. So,
Just the request shall be added to the agenda.
Yeah,
yeah, just get rid of the prepositional phrase at the front for the comma.
The staff shall add the appellant's request to the agenda. Or
Yeah,
the appellant's request shall be added to the agenda.
yeah, that would be fine.
Better.
Okay?
That way nobody's responsible.
Or we're all responsible.
Well, when all are responsible, no one's responsible.
That's right.
and what about
So the
number
chairman shall
4?
review the agenda and call a special meeting within 30 days of the appellant's request. So that's pretty obvious, so that's okay. All right,
Yep.
Like it so far.
Could you, splitting hairs, should you specify the BZA chairman like it's specified in the other sentences?
Yeah, probably so.
yeah, BZA chairman, yes. So number 5 becomes moot, doesn't it? Let's see.
we're done.
No. No, I don't.
Oh,
think
no,
so.
that's public notice. Okay. So the 6, 7, and 8 are an appellant not coming to the BZA meeting or withdrawing his case before the hearing. Again, Franklin has two BZA meetings a week scheduled. Some of them have scheduled meetings every week. So I don't know that would happen to us, but it might. But those 6, 7, and 8 really deal with basically people not showing up.
I think that's appropriate. I mean, I know of one recent rezoning we had where basically the guy never showed up. He wanted to
Right.
zone,
So it
but
shouldn't
he-
be heard if he's not there. Right?
Well, yeah.
Well, the BZA, an appeal for a Board of Zoning Appeals appeal probably should not be heard if he's not there to at least talk about his case. I mean, other things I saw were you have 10 minutes to prove your case. If nobody's there, if other people are there, you get 7 minutes, and then the rebuttal 7 minutes, and back and forth. And wow, that was just too much.
Would there be any time where we'd want to hear it? Maybe they were not able to make it and we received word of that and we got answers to the questions we would have had. So we could, instead of saying the board shall dismiss the application, could we
No,
put the
so
board-
it says in number 6 that they can withdraw their application once without prejudice. If they
Yeah.
do it again, and then we have to actually have to pay for and advertise it all again, it would be handled with prejudice, and the town,
They'd be blocked for 6 months.
right, we blocked for
Yeah.
6 months.
And,
after
yeah,
that.
I'm talking about number 8. So it says
Number
in any
8.
case where the appellant has failed to appear, which is what we were talking about, it says the board shall dismiss the application for lack of prosecution. What
Right.
if we get some leeway in there because the person couldn't show up because they were out of town or had something else going on, but they answered our questions prior, so we were able to proceed. But if it was written this way, it means we can't proceed or will not proceed. So instead
Right,
of the
so-
board shall dismiss, we put the board has the right to dismiss the application.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Okay, so where do you want it? The board
Instead of
has
shall,
the right to
the
instead
board
of
has the
shall?
right to dismiss. That way, so I think we've had a time or two where someone didn't show up, we were able to proceed.
Right, I
No,
got you.
if that read, in any case where the applicant fails to appear, the board may dismiss the application for lack of prosecution.
And I'm going to change that to BZA just to keep it all
Yeah.
the same.
Right.
Because I took all that board out of there and put BZA in there because I didn't want to confuse Board of Mayor and Alderman with BZA, you know? So I changed
You're
all
still
those
not,
board words.
Yeah, you still have some
You're still not-
grammar issue.
Yeah. What's that?
you're still
You
not
have a
done.
grammar issue. It says in any case where the appellant has fails to appear, you just need to get has out.
What's wrong with that?
And then
And
the
add it after-
BZA, the right,
Yeah.
after the comment, yeah, there, has the right.
Has the right.
There we go.
Got you.
All right.
Try editing in live and in person.
Editing in real time.
Yeah,
No
that's right,
pressure.
man. Does that seem okay to everybody now? Okay.
That's a good ad, Matt.
You all thought my kids were keeping me from paying attention.
Oh,
There were
It's that
moments,
bag of
there
chips.
was moments.
You're a good multitasker.
That bag of chips looks pretty good.
I'll send you some. I'll walk you some down.
So I identified the powers of the duties out of the TCA code 137205 through 137207, which identifies the powers and duties of the Board of Zoning Appeals. And then I added where the board, the BZA is empowered with the authority to make decisions regarding the following. I changed that to add, in making such decisions, BZA shall indicate the specific section of the zoning ordinance. Now, this was again in Nashville's where you had to refer to the ordinance specifically what they were appealing. And maybe that's something we want, maybe it's not something we want, I don't know. What do y'all think?
I think having the ability to say in the interest of public health, safety, and general welfare is something that I would be wary of disregarding. I would hate to say, well, we all
Yeah.
know why we don't want to allow it, but
So what I think this is saying is that they want more than just
Yeah.
in the interest of public health.
Specifics.
They want specific findings, even though it is in the interest of public health, safety, and general welfare. But they want what they are asking for is specifically
Yeah.
why they feel they can appeal to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Again, this is all going to be like in a application form. I got to figure that one out. That's the next thing I'm going to work on is getting that application form figured out.
Now I've got, why would the BZA be the party that indicates the specific section of the zoning ordinance or code which
Okay.
the variance is being considered? It seems to me the applicant,
The appellate,
the one,
yeah,
It's
that's what I
saying-
was saying. That's
huh? What? Is that what you were saying, George?
yeah. He was taking one of our arrows out of our quiver.
gotcha. I got you, George.
Yeah, I mean, they need to tell us why it's a hardship on them and why we ought to grant a variance, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
Instead of, the way this is written right now, it makes the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Right.
Do
Well,
that.
it's already changed. I already switched it.
Okay.
Well, the rest of the paragraph doesn't agree with it, and shall state its findings beyond such generalities as, I mean, the appellate's not going to have a finding.
Right.
No, that's right. Yeah.
Or you could put a period after considered and then state the board or the BZA shall state findings beyond such general idea. I would guess if you're trying to fix it that way. It again, in cases pertaining to hardship, it seems to me the appellant should be the one identifying the hardship, not the board. Then the board decides, is that truly a hardship?
Certainly didn't spell that right. I missed an L. Is that making sense there, Jim? That paragraph?
It is. I hesitate a little bit because I think there's two pieces here. There's one, the application, where the applicant clearly has to prove the hardship to the board. But on the back end, I think the board also has to, by either agreeing or not agreeing or changing them some, should definitely restate, or here it says, you know, identify the hardship. I think it's important because the next step is really going to the court system. I think you really, more than any other board, I think the BZA has to button up their approval really good. So I think there has to be something, at least on the back end, where and maybe it's not even in the code, just so y'all know, that when you approve something or make a motion to approve or deny, that you specifically state the reasons and the findings. And maybe it's as simple as referring to the applicants, what they prepared and submitted. But I think it's worth mentioning, at least in any motion to approve, all those details.
Mhm.
To be more so I think the intent of the original paragraph was for that, to make sure the Board of Zoning Appeals has findings and they're documenting the findings. But I think, but obviously the applicant has to do the brunt work, or the grunt work. Brunt of the grunt work, we'll say that.
So I highlighted that to do a little bit more work on that paragraph.
Okay.
So I can keep track of it. So I just highlighted it in yellow so that I can fix it up a little bit, and I can talk to Jim about it and we can get it right.
Okay, because under the writ of certiorari, the court just considers the record. They
Yeah.
don't actually hold hearings and things. You present the record to them, and then they decide whether you were right or wrong based on that.
Right.
Yeah.
So your record needs to be thorough. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So let me work on that some. And I think that's everything I added, and everything in red that I added.
So
Yep.
this has to go before the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Well, I think
Yeah,
we're going to
right.
make a few changes other than just this one, don't you think?
Yeah.
We're working on some of this, what we talked about at the last meeting, which was some of the administrative part of this, what it said in the minutes. I don't really remember specifically. Let's see what it says in the minutes.
Do you think that it's necessary, or we would want to somehow in this cover, because what Jim has said is that we've got to make sure that the minutes contain the information, and that whatever reason for a denial, because otherwise you wouldn't be appealing it.
Yes, in the BZA minutes of the meeting, you mean?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
they be quite detailed in addressing this, and the findings be spelled out and cited why. But do you think somewhere in this it should address the process of the hearing? Because we really haven't talked about the hearing aspect of it.
Yeah, so the Nashville zoning ordinance has that entire process in there. And
Yeah,
I didn't put it in here, but I can put a version of that together.
yeah. Um,
Well,
because
let's,
it doesn't really address the judicial aspect, or, you know, the quasi judicial aspect of it, that what we're expecting, what the person, the appellant is entitled to, what the people in the public hearing are allowed to say, what people that are authorities are allowed to say, and that process a little bit.
Right.
Maybe just a paragraph, but still.
Well, it actually has that kind of spelled out in that, you know,
Yeah.
the appellant has 7 minutes to make their case, and the rebuttal has 7 minutes to rebuttal, and then the appellant has another 3 minutes, and so
Well,
it goes back and forth. It has all that stuff spelled out in
I don't want to go
several
that
zoning
deep.
ordinances.
Yeah, I don't want to go that detailed, but just
Right,
that, you know, that
right.
they have a right and the public has a right, and that the purpose of the public's comments are not, you know, we always get into this when we have things like this where they say property values and things that are, they're just opinions. They're not,
Yeah,
they're not issue. They're not, you know, well, the drainage is
Right.
horrible. It's,
Right.
you know, so a
Right.
nice little bit, but not like Nashville, not that big, not time limits or just to eliminate redundancy, that you shouldn't just allow everybody to get up and speak if they're saying the same thing. You know, maybe we address it if they have new,
right.
distinct.
Should be a process to the hearing,
Yeah,
because
that'd
it's
be nice.
basically a hearing.
Yeah.
all right, now, it is a hearing that's open to the public, but it is not a public hearing
Okay, yeah.
necessarily.
Okay.
So up there in 14.2.2035, where it talks about upon the hearing, parties may appear and be heard in person or by their appointed agent. Okay, does parties, I understand that's just the person appealing. Jim, you don't actually have a public hearing and hear from the public at these, do you?
I think you absolutely do. Because if you had like a side yard variance request, you'd absolutely want to hear from that neighbor, or at least give them the opportunity to talk about how it impacts their property. So, you know, and part of this is you do the mailed notices. I don't know what it is specifically here, but so you do want to have a time for the public to speak on these cases.
Or do we have notice requirements in here?
I might defer to Bob on that one.
Yeah, don't ask me. I'm looking here. Hang on a second. It may be in another part of the zoning ordinance. Let me just look here real quick. Because there, you know, nothing is easy in the zoning ordinance. You got to look all over the place for it.
Well, didn't you just rewrite it?
I wrote that section. I rewrote that section.
I don't think you can claim that anymore. You might could have claimed that before last month, but I don't know that you can claim that anymore.
As a 15 days notice. 14.2.105 indicates a 15 days notice for a public hearing. No, that's on something else. Hang on a
But
second.
that's on changing the zoning ordinance.
Right. That's on something else. Yeah. I have to look at that, Mayor. I don't see it.
I don't recall the Board of Zoning Appeals. Well, obviously you might want to hear from the next door neighbors and the surrounding people. I don't recall that being something that we've done that requires an actual public hearing.
So there's a rebuttal for neighbors. There's a rebuttal section for a neighbor to come in and say, wait a minute, I think your idea stinks and it's going to mess up my property and
Now, where is
I don't
that?
want you to do it.
Where
And then
is
you have
that?
you have that problem, but you're also talking about Nashville, who may not know your neighbor.
All right, but you're saying that that's in the Nashville ordinance.
That's
not
in
this
Nashville's,
one.
yes, sir. Yep. where it spells out your rebuttal person and it goes back and forth, and then they have a chance to go back again, and then another chance to go, the other person gets a chance to say something too. So they have like back and forth twice.
Right, but that may be there, and that may have been something that we should have been doing, but I don't
Well,
think our
yeah.
practice has been that when I apply to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance, that we contact the neighbors and advertise a public hearing. We advertise the meeting, but I don't think we advertise a public hearing.
No, I don't think so either, because it says that it's going to be, you have 30 days to get that on the agenda.
Wait, when we did Rolando's lot, did we not have a time for public?
But that was a
That was a
rezoning.
rezoning.
What are we talking about?
We're
We're
talking
talking
about
about
the
an
Board
appeal
of
to the
Zoning
Board of Zoning
Appeals.
Appeals.
I guess I'm ignorant as to the difference.
Well, one is the planning commission zoning and the other one is a BZA
Right.
hearing. They're different hearings by different people. They should be treated the same because they are a quasi-judicial thing, and we just haven't
And when
done it.
when we try to update our zoning ordinance to add this information into it, we need a public hearing that has to be advertised 15 days
Right.
ahead of time, that anybody can address any of this information if they want to, that we worked on, just like the table of uses that we just passed. There was a public hearing. Nobody was there, but there was a public hearing. So
But
that
then-
was advertised 15 days in advance.
Two thoughts here. There's an interesting sentence in 14-2-203, and this is under the BZA section, the parties and procedure for appeals. BZA shall fix a reasonable time for the hearing of the appeal, give public notice thereof, as well as due notice to the parties in interest. But it really doesn't define what that means. But I believe TCA has notice requirements for BZA actions. I'm going to look that up right now if I can. So we probably need to clean this up and at least have a reference to TCA if it's in there.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
But I think it's, I believe it's 10 days notice per state law. We're going to test my memory here.
Well, it seems like to me there's a 10-day notice and a 15-day notice, which I never could figure out why they had two different ones. But I may be thinking of annexations too, now that I think about it. So,
I know rezonings are 15 days usually. You're doing an,
Right.
doing an ordinance. Unless it's changed, but again, my memory, who knows?
all right, a hearing before enacting the zoning ordinance or any amendment thereof, the chief legislative body shall hold a public hearing. At least 15 days notice of the time and place shall be published in the official municipal journal. So that's 15 days. And that appears to be, that's in 13.7.203.
205 to 207 is the BZA. I love legislation that says counties over 200,000 and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Cities of 3,094 only as of the 2010 census, which is Somerville only.
Oh, is that it?
Nothing. There's legislation they passed that refers to basically one city or one county or whatever. It really bothers me for some reason.
It bothers the Constitution in a lot of cases if anybody would bother to check it.
So we already highlighted something in yellow that we want to work on. This seems to be something we want to work on as well.
Yes.
And
Yeah, I highlighted that.
we're not
area
going to
too.
solve it tonight.
That public
So-
notice thing. Yes. I'm going to work on that.
Okay, so we don't need to belabor that tonight.
No, we don't need to mess with that tonight. I can read it and look it up.
Okay,
And Jim and I can talk about it and fix it up for the next meeting.
sounds good.
And we also probably need to work on a few other documents and stuff like that, maybe an application. I don't know if we need to actually show you the application or not, but we're working on, I've been talking to a couple of people here at work, about creating an application for some of these things.
Yeah,
I've got a list of several different applications that we need to create because, from the zoning ordinance. So.
yeah,
And not necessarily, maybe checklists, maybe application is not
yeah, we, George,
entirely the accurate, it's just checklists also.
yeah. All right. Have we completed everything you had in red?
Yes,
Okay. All right, is there anything else on the agenda?
I got to get back to the agenda. Hang on a second. Where's my packet? That's it.
Okay, well, if there is no new business, is there any new business? If there's no new business, and if there's no objection, I'd like to adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
No objection, we are adjourned.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you all.
Thank you.
Somebody say, hey, Matt? Or amen.
Amen.
Amen. Go eat your chips, man.
I will. Y'all have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.